Welcome to Bitcoin Stuff. Hey guys, quick video on the core cache conflict going on in Bitcoin right now. So I'm going to give some advice to the cache side of the conflict, but first I'm going to summarize the situation for noobs. So basically, the problem as I see it is that the Bitcoin core developers have decided that because they control the private keys to the Bitcoin Core repo, that this gives them control over the rules of Bitcoin, which is a mistaken position because if they do not try hard enough to maximize the value of the investment they are making for the investors, then anybody can create a fork of Bitcoin and do a better job maximizing value for the investors, so as to change the rules of Bitcoin, in a way that's more like what the investors want. Okay, so the Bitcoin core people wish to have hegemony over the nature of Bitcoin, and they don't realize that they cannot have this, and they don't really control what happens. Investors do. And the reason investors control is it is possible to plan to be a leader at a further ahead period of time using an investment strategy, and also for a wider variety of future circumstances. So I can arrange my portfolio in a way that promotes me being the leader in a wider range of future scenarios, and with a higher degree of certainty in the future. And I'm better at this using investment than I am, as a program. The programming doesn't help you with that very much, compared to what I can do as an investor. So I say investors are in control of Bitcoin, and the developers are taking a position that they cannot defend, and they have not yet realized that they cannot defend this position. So I have been trying to teach them that this is a bad position for them to be in, and that's kind of what my YouTube series has been about. So what I say is that the developers should just do what the investors want, okay? Because the investors are the ones who are really in control anyway, so the developers should just recognize that and realize that if they want to stay in the position of being the most important programmer, they have to maximize value for the investors, okay? So the core cache conflict to me is a conflict between investors and developers, and it is not a conflict between miners and developers. That is simply an illusion, because ultimately miners have to do what investors want also. Okay. Now, the difference, the reason that Bitcoin has forked as opposed to somebody creating an altcoin is that it is much easier for a fork to win over an altcoin, and the reason is it is possible to be indifferent between forks. So that gives investors a better opportunity, because they have the choice to be indifferent or to get involved in the conflict. But if you owned Bitcoins before the split happened, you have the option of just saying, whatever. I'm sure one of these several groups will figure out how to maximize value, so I don't have to care. Okay, whereas you don't, or you can say, I am going to, I think I know who can maximize value the best, and then you invest in that chain. Okay, but forks versus altcoins, or I should say Bitcoin versus an altcoin, that you don't have that option, okay, to be indifferent. Okay, because you have to choose to buy both. Whereas when a fork happens, you just automatically have both. And so most of the Bitcoins that will ever exist have been mined before the core cash fork happened. Okay, so that means the people who bought Bitcoins before the fork happened are more important to determining the outcome than the people who will buy after. But to me, the Bitcoin core developers are more focused on the needs of the people who are buying after, and that is a bad thing to be focused on, because these are less influential people. But if you had Bitcoins before, the sum of the values of everybody who bought Bitcoins before, that's much bigger than the sum of the values of everybody who bought after. So to me, those are the important people, relatively speaking, right? Now, it is not like there are investors on. It's not like um, uh, these two sides are embodied by core and cash. What is really going on is the investor side is smart enough to recognize that the real choice is whether to be indifferent. Okay, so the core cash choice is less important than the indifference, getting involved in the conflict choice. If I remain indifferent between the forks, then whichever one wins, I'm still going to be around, right? So I can continue to bug I can continue to bug either side with what I want, no matter what happens. And so to me, that makes me more powerful than a developer, because, or I should say, a developer who is insisting that he controls the rules. Okay, uh, uh, because that developer may make the wrong choice, and then his chain is not valuable anymore. Whereas if I am indifferent and I just keep whatever forks come out of Bitcoin, then I will still be the same no matter which one wins. I will still have the same fraction of the total. Okay, so I will be as powerful after as I was before the conflict, whichever happens, if I remain indifferent. But I can also get involved in the conflict if I know who I think is making better rules, which to me is very different than being someone who can understand cryptography and software engineering really well. If I think that I know who is making better rules, then I can get involved a little bit. And the the Bitcoin core developer position is untenable, because in order to keep investors invested in them, they have to consistently convince a majority of old investors to sell some of their Bitcoin Cash or whatever else will come out of the mess eventually. They have to consistently do that. They have to consistently make investors choose to take on extra risk on their behalf. So that's kind of like a company that can never stop requiring more investment from entrepreneurs. Okay, because maybe they that's really what it's like, because they have to consistently make the best choices, and they have to get new investment every time there is a choice. And they to me, I don't think anybody can really expect to accomplish that. But for people who can choose to be indifferent versus choosing to get involved, you really can make an infinite. You see, if you don't have to be involved in the choice, you only have to get involved in choices that you specifically know something about, and otherwise you can remain indifferent. So if if you are an investor and you keep both coins that kind of come out of a split like the one that created Core and Cash, then you can expect to continue to maintain your position over a much longer time frame, where there are much more choices that happen. You see what I mean? So this is what makes the investor position better than the position of the developer who thinks they control the rules of Bitcoin, and doesn't recognize that their best option is simply to follow the investors. Okay, so I think the developers should just follow the investors, and the way that they can do this is by looking at the markets. Okay, so we can have a futures market about potential rule changes, and if the developers promise to build whatever is being indicated by the market as being the most valuable future change to Bitcoin, then investors will invest in these options in a way that that tells us which one is going to create the most value. Because we've taken like the skill of the cryptographers out of the equation, right? So if the developers promise to build whatever is the most valuable, then the investment decision is about which rules will create the most value for Bitcoin, rather than who are the smartest developers, which I don't think is. I think that is a relatively unimportant factor. Okay. Now, I made an earlier video where I talked about senators versus gladiators, and this is how I characterized the decision of forks of Bitcoin. So I said the forks of Bitcoin are like gladiators, and the people who remain indifferent are like senators, and they sit and enjoy the fight, and eventually they give their up or down vote to say what happens to the fighters. And right now we are having a gladiatorial combat in Bitcoin, where we are seeing which side is learning to fight better. Okay? Now, I'm going to talk to the cash side of the fight, because it is obvious that the core side doesn't want to listen to me. So to me, the big weakness of the core side is a lack of intelligence, and not just a lack, but an outright avoidance of doing anything intelligent. So cash should try to win by being more intelligent. And so the reason I think this is it seems like the core side doesn't get that they have to please investors, um, and they don't understand that investors are going to be more happy when there are close alternatives available. Okay, so they are going to make investors happy by being more valuable than close alternatives to themselves. So instead of competing with SegWit 2x, they waged a propaganda campaign against it and trying to make people hate it so that it would disappear. So that's not a way to please investors. And they don't want to use an options market or a prediction market to figure out what they should do to be the most valuable. So they don't seem to think that they have to do anything to be more valuable. And to me, that's really dumb because the options market is basically instructions on how to be more valuable. So you have to be really dumb not to want to listen to it. And a prediction market includes an options market. It's just there's more things can happen in a prediction market. But the options market could have potential future rule changes and which ones the investors think is going to be more valuable. And the prediction market can have that plus anything else in it. And it just says Bitcoin will be more valuable if we do this. And it's just investors saying what they would want to buy more of. It's instructions on how to succeed. So I think that the core side does not want to learn how to succeed. So they are very dumb, and they should be treated like retarded people. And to me, that's not happening enough. Okay, to me, I think the cash side is treating them too much like the evil Illuminati. But I think they have the most power if they just think of them as retarded people. Because if you don't want to follow a prediction market, that really means you don't want a brain. That's what that means to me. Because the prediction market, it works like a brain, except that there's just lots of different people contributing their neurons to it. But if you predict well, you get rewarded, and your behavior is it is reinforced by money, and that's exactly the same thing that happens in your brain, except your neurons aren't reinforced by money, but their behavior is reinforced when they successfully predict what you are going to do, and that is the process by which you learn to be a more integrated person. Okay, so when you're a baby and you're learning to move, your arm moves kind of randomly because your neurons are arranged randomly. But if some of the neurons are able to predict what the arm is going to do a little better than the others, then their behavior is reinforced. So eventually you get a more unified brain that is able to, move according to your intentions. So the prediction market is the same thing. It's a big brain, and the core side doesn't want it. So I was thinking about how to dramatize this conflict, because I like using stories. So how do we depict this with a story? And I think that the way that you the way that you depict a conflict between someone less intelligent and someone more intelligent is that the less intelligent person is like one character in a story, whereas the more intelligent person is every other character. Because that's kind of what intelligence is. It's you have a greater variety of behavior available to you, so you can be any character you want, and you get to choose whenever you want. Okay, so the core side has to be one character, whereas an opponent who successfully leveraged the intelligence available to them is any character they want to be. So I think a good retarded character is Gollum from Lord of the Rings. And it's not like he is really retarded, but he's not very bright because his mind was destroyed because he picked up the Ring of Power, which you should never do. Remember never to pick up the Ring of Power, or it will corrupt you. And that's what Gollum did, and he became a retarded lunatic. He became corrupted, and now he has to pursue the ring at any cost. And to me, this is a lot like Core, because the ring is like success, and they don't really know how to succeed. They just pursue it stupidly, and they go like, my precious must kill Segwit 2X. So now we get to choose any character from Lord of the Rings who we want to be to fight Gollum. So who's going to be good at fighting Gollum? Well, I think Gollum is easily manipulated because he is bound to pursue the ring at any cost. And Gollum is like somebody who is totally controlled by his temptations. So if you can understand what his temptation is, you control him. So we need to be somebody who is very manipulative. And remember, the core side, they don't like market manipulation. So yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. So who is very manipulative in Lord of the Rings? Well, I think that if we picked up the Ring of Power and we held it out to Gollum, then he would have to go, the precious! No, it's over here. No, it's here. No, it's over here now. My precious! So that's kind of how we control him. And I think that we can do that pretty easily because we created the ring. We are the Great Eye. We are Sauron, the Dark Lord. That's who we need to be. That's who's good at fighting Gollum. And Sauron is perfect. He's like he's definitely a more intelligent character because he adapts himself to different people. And I really like how they did this in Lord of the Rings, because you notice the ring has a different voice when it is communicating with different characters. So Sauron is perfect. He is the more intelligent character. And from the perspective of a less intelligent character, he is like somebody who can't be understood, someone who is very mysterious, somebody who could be watching at any time. Before Sauron was Sauron, he was Lord of Gifts, and this is how he originally distributed the magic rings. Like, how did these people fall for the magic rings from somebody named Lord of Gifts? To me, that seems really silly. I certainly would not. I would sort of mistrust somebody who claimed to be Lord of Gifts. So Sauron is like somebody who is your temptation. Okay? So he adapts himself to you. So the power of having a bigger brain is that you can have a model of your opponent in your brain, and they can't have a model of your brain in their brain. So you are always something that they can't predict, and you can generate more information than they are able to respond to. The team that does the best job learning about what will be more valuable is I think the one that is more likely to win, not the one which is the best at cryptography. Now, not necessarily, I should say. My point is that is a less important factor. And right now, what is missing is learning what investors want. That is the biggest problem that isn't being solved right now. Okay, so let me give you a few more metaphors for this. So someone whose nature cannot be understood. Well, I think that Pennywise the clown is a really good depiction of a character like that, because you know he is not really a clown, and you know he can appear as anything, but you don't know what nature is hidden behind these varieties of hallucination. Pennywise can be anywhere. He can be watching you from anywhere, kind of like Sauron, the Great Eye. And he can tempt you. He can lure you in with his friendly clown persona. In the book It says that the being's power is like a mirror. Okay, so when you look at the creature, you see what you expect to see. You see an image that is generated from your mind. So the creature can read your mind and can construct lures based on what you imagine. So and it can put these images together too. So you can see you can see what other people have imagined too. And Pennywise is kind of like a collective unconscious free floating fear that is moving through the town. Yeah, Pennywise. And another good one, I think, is Sadako from The Ring. Sadako has control over images. And to me, that's like having more intelligence. Okay, so because she can control what you see. And she can come out of the television, so she is everywhere. So I think that is what you can achieve if you better leverage the intelligence of the investors. Now, if there were an obviously more intelligent side, then that's definitely the side I would want to be on. And from the perspective of a less intelligent character, a more intelligent character can appear as a horror monster. because more intelligence means that they have a nature that the less intelligent character cannot determine.
The bearer of the ring, the wearer of the ring, stands on the very brink of fate, staring into eyes of darkness and despair that rise and shrink with hate.
Oh! I can feel you change as we draw near the great furnaces where in the depths of time you were shaped and formed. Our doom. I could claim you, Ring. I would be Samwise the Strong.
The bearer of the ring, the wearer of the ring, he hears a voice compelling him, filling him with thoughts that echo in his mind. It should be telling him, beware, the power is a power never known. Beware, the power that was simple now has grown. Beware, O bearer of the ring, the final power has yet to be shown. The bearer of the ring, the wearer of the ring, through forces tempting to resist, must recall the quest to end this darkest age that mortal death has kissed. The bearer of the ring, the wearer of the ring, beware who wears the ring.
Hail, Samwise the Strong! Hail the Conqueror! Hail the War King! Hero of the age!
To the Dark Tower! To Barad-dûr! I claim thee, Barad-dûr! You are Sauron's no more!
Hail, Samwise the Strong! The sun shines for thee alone!
And now I claim all of the Vale of Gorogoro. Now let this foul desolation, this cursed plateau of the Dark Lord Sauron, this orc-infested desert of nameless horrors, let it blossom forth and live! Let it live for Samwise the Strong!
Samwise the Strong!
Behold, the gardens of my delight. So shall I transform the world. All could be mine if I but claim thee, Ring. What brought me back? Plain hobbit sense. I know in my heart I'm not enough to bear such a burden. One small garden of a free gardener is all my need and due. My own hands to use, not the hands of others to command.
Less can be more, and small can be beautiful, for life isn't all just big and wonderful. And what do I need when you get right down to it? All my cares come from greed, and it's time that I knew it. Things I can't do without are the small things that life is all about. Less can be more, and small can be beautiful. I don't want it all, just part of wonderful. For what do I need when you get right down to it? Just a garden and seed and the love to pursue it. Things I can't do without are the small things that life is all about.
We swear to serve the master of the